It was at 10 a.m. at the Loud house as the Loud family rushed out of their home in a panic. Today was the day that they'd all been dreading for the last few weeks. April Fool's Day. This meant that Luan would be pranking her entire family with hidden prank traps set in various rooms and areas of the house all day long. However, for the rest of her family, they always had a plan in motion to avoid Luan and her pranks. "Quick! Everyone in the bunker! Hurry!" Lisa said frantically, leading the family into her military-grade underground bunker just outside the house. Rita, Lynn Sr., Lola, Lana, Luna, Lisa, Lynn Jr., Lenny, Lori, and Lincoln followed Lisa inside the bunker, with a now 4-year-old Lily following close behind him. "Man, I can't believe Luan is at it again. And here I thought she'd keep her word that she wouldn't pull pranks anymore on April Fool's Day, especially after last year," Lori pouted. No one in the family had forgotten about last year's April Fool's prank Luan had pulled on them all. She had hired duplicate actors from a film studio to take the places of her family members in order to prank them all. But Luan eventually got what was coming to her when her family got back at her by placing all of her belongings on a moving van and forcing Luan to make a mad dash across town to get her stuff back. Even after all that, Luan still hadn't given up on pranking. "Yeah, but what do you expect? She's Luan, the prankster queen. It's not like she's gonna give up pranking anytime soon," Luna replied. "Luan, a meanie," Lily said. "I'm telling you, we gotta do something about it once this day is over," Rita urged her husband. Grounding Luan doesn't do much good, though," Lynn Sr. replied. "She always goes back on her word every year." "Her pranks will be the death of us one day," Lucy said grimly. "I doubt she'd ever go that far," Lynn Jr. replied. "But her pranks could end up hurting someone real bad someday if she keeps it up." "We should try standing up to Luan for once," Willis suggested. Before anyone could respond to her suggestion, they all heard a knock on the bunker door. Come out, my little siblings. I know you're in there," Luan called out in a sing-song tone of voice, followed by a laugh. "Not a chance, Luan," Lana yelled. "Yeah, we're not looking to fall into your prank traps like last time," Lenny added. "Aw, come on," Luan taunted. "I'm not gonna bite." "No, come out," Lily said, shaking her head. "Luan, we're not coming out until nightfall or until you dismantle those traps of yours. So get lost," Lily snapped. "Geez whiz, what a party pooper. Get it?" Luan laughed, splatting a big bag of pig poop on the bunker, then heading away from the bunker and back into the house. "Man, she's just not gonna give up, is she?" Lola moaned. "Then I'll do something about it," Lincoln declared. Everyone turned to face Lincoln with shocked expressions. "What? Lincoln? Luan's probably got every room in the house rigged with prank traps. You're not seriously going in there, are you?" Lenny exclaimed. "Yes, I'm going to trip all of the traps he's got set in the house so that we can all get out of here," Lincoln nodded. "I did it once to prevent Ronnie Ann from getting caught in them. If I did it once, I can do it again." "Lincoln, are you sure about this?" Rita asked in concern. "Very sure, Mom," Lincoln nodded. "I'll spring the traps and be back to get you in a flash." "All right, be careful," Rita replied as Lincoln climbed up the ladder leading to the bunker door. "Your funeral, bro," Lucy said. Lincoln turned the wheel on the bunker door to the right, unlocking the door. He then pushed it open and climbed out of the bunker, then sidestepped across the door to avoid the pig dung Luan threw at the door a minute ago. Lincoln then closed the door and started towards the house. Once he reached the porch, he set off a prank trap set on the roof above him. A small twine rope was nailed to a loose floorboard on the porch steps and attached to a bucket of red food coloring on the roof, and when Lincoln stepped on the board, he caused the bucket to tilt and spill the red liquid all over him. This really made him mad, since he just washed his shirt the other night, and the food coloring would be impossible to get out. "Ugh, Luan! She's gonna regret this," Lincoln growled in frustration as his white hair and orange shirt got wet. Just then, the Samsung tablet with a webcam attached to the front door sprang to life and displayed Luan's grinning face on the screen. Well, Lincoln, come to try and stop me?" Luan taunted. From what Lincoln could tell from the surroundings around Luan, she was in the kitchen standing near the sink. He tried opening the door, but it had a wooden door stop stuck under it from the inside. "Luan, your pranks have gone far enough and we're all sick of it." Lincoln snapped angrily. "I'm coming in there and bring whatever traps you set, then you're gonna wash my sir. Now take the stop out from under this door." "Sorry, but I can't do that," Luan said, reaching off screen for something. "I'm just having a blast today." Suddenly, a set of party poppers hanging from the porch ceiling went off above Lincoln, showering him with confetti. Luan laughed loudly as Lincoln glared in frustration at her. Then the tablet went dark. "Ugh, I had enough of this," Lincoln snapped impatiently, ratting the door open in an attempt to loosen the doorstop and open the door. After setting her tablet down inside the house, Luan finished setting off her last prank trap. This one consisted of a transparent piece of plastic twine that stretched across the entrance to the kitchen, a jar of old bacon grease, which she poured across the floor leading to the refrigerator, and a bucket of water balloons on top of the fridge. The way this prank would work is that Lincoln would head for the kitchen, trip on the twine, and slide across the grease on the floor, then slam into the fridge, which would cause the bucket on top of it to spill the water balloons all over him. As Luan finished setting the bucket in place, he jumped off the stool she was using and said, "Yeah, you'll never see this one coming." Luan kicked the stool aside and grabbed her iPad tablet, then headed for the attic, where no prank traps had been set, and watched everything unfold through Lisa's security cameras on her iPad. However, Luan was so preoccupied and excited from setting up this last trap that she didn't notice that one of the front bouncing legs on the fridge was loose. Too loose. By the point, Lincoln had gotten the door open enough to slip inside. Once he entered the house, Lincoln thought about where he should start looking for Luan's prank traps. He knew that she most likely hid the traps in areas that he'd never looked before. It had been 2 years since Lincoln had foiled Luan's traps to save Ronnie Ann from getting caught in one of them, so he knew that she had probably put the traps in different locations. "I better start with the upstairs first, then I'll check the rest of the downstairs for any other traps Luan might have set," Lincoln decided, then rushed upstairs to check for traps. Once he got to the top of the stairs, Lincoln stepped on a small rubber bulb, and suddenly exploded and soured him with McCormick brand onion powder, which made him sneeze several times. "Man, I hate onion powder, but I can't stop now," Lincoln said with a sneeze. He entered the hallway and saw the door to his parents was open and cracked, giving him the impression that something was off. Lincoln rushed up to the door and pulled it open fully, only to be splattered with a pair of rotten eggs, which stank like a bunch of real bad diarrhea farts. "Ugh, sweet mother of Colonel, rotten eggs!" Lincoln exclaimed in complete disgust as he ran out of the room, coughing from the horrible stench. A few of the eggs had splattered on his shirt and head, but most of them had missed Lincoln entirely and landed at his feet. "Luan, you really don't know when to quit, do you?" Lincoln growled as he headed for his sister's room. Next, in the attic, Luan stood near an old chair, laughing hysterically as he watched the camera feeds on her iPad of Lincoln setting off all the traps in each of her siblings' rooms. Lisa, and Lynn's rooms were rigged with pie launchers, which splat Lincoln in the face in the chest with chocolate cream pie. The beds in Lori and Lenny's room were full with non-venomous corn snakes, which Lincoln took back to their cage in Lana and Lola's room, only to trip another prank trap of Lance that shot rubber bands at him from a set of pop guns sitting on Lola's tea table. "Man, you're really desperate to try to stop my pranks, aren't you, Lincoln?" Luan laughed like a crazy yaduri girl as he watched Lincoln enter hers and Luna's room. The trap in her room consisted of a garden hose and a piece of rope attached to the valve on the end. When Lincoln stepped on it, he got sprayed with water. Then he rushed into Lisa and Lily's rooms. Once Lincoln entered the room, he stepped on a catapult that launched a bunch of oatmeal balloons and some of Lisa's old chemicals at him. But he quickly rushed out of the room and slammed the door shut before they could hit him. "Looks like my room is last," Lincoln sighed in frustration. "I better get this over with so we can all enjoy our day." In the attic, Luan watched as Lincoln headed straight towards his room and pulled open the door. "Man, wait until he sees what's in there," she snickered as he watched Lincoln enter her room. Once he was inside, Lincoln saw what looked like a party ball sitting on his bed. When he approached it and tried to touch it, the ball exploded like a firecracker and soured Lincoln with confetti and whipped cream. He was about to leave the room when he noticed something laying in the center of a split open party ball. "What's this?" Lincoln wondered, as he pulled the wall apart to see what was inside, but what he saw was very unpleasant and shocking. "No!" Lincoln gasped in shock at what he saw. Sitting on the bed in pieces was none other than Bun Bun, his stuffed rabbit that he had kept since he was Lily's age. Both of Bun Bun's arms had been blown off, along with his right ear, and lay on the bed. His body also had a few charm marks from the firecrackers, but not any non-repairable damage, thankfully. Lincoln picked up the damaged stuffed rabbit in his trembling hands and felt his anger boil. There were more than enough pranks that Lincoln could withstand, but this one crossed the line big time. Bun Bun was his best friend to him, and Luan treated the stuffed rabbit like it was some toy or prop to be used as fodder for her pranks. Lincoln set the rabbit down on his bed and turned back towards the door with an enraged look on his face. "Luan Loud, where the heck are you? You're gonna pay for this one," Lincoln yelled angrily. Luan still smirked and snickered at his temper, but couldn't help but wonder if maybe he'd gone a bit too far. So Ben watched Lincoln head for the stairs on the camera, wondering where he'd go next. It didn't take long for Luan to figure out he was headed for the kitchen. "I swear I'm really gonna teach that prankster a lesson when I get my hands on her. This time she's gone too far," Lincoln hissed furiously as he headed straight for the kitchen. However, he was so focused on finding Luan that he didn't notice the tripwire at the kitchen entrance. As Lincoln headed for the kitchen, he tripped over the transparent cable in the doorway before he even noticed it, breaking it in the process. "Hey, what? Lincoln yelled as he slipped and fell into the smelly baking grease, where he slid across the floor and slammed hard into the fridge. Lincoln hit the fridge so hard that it caused it to wobble back and forth, spilling the bucket of water balloons all over the floor around him and getting him wet. Luan laughed her head off as he watched Lincoln flip his sack on camera. What happened next was something that she never suspected would happen. The loose foot leg on the fridge finally gave away from the force of impact and broke off, causing the fridge to fall forward. Lincoln quickly tried to get out of the way, but he wasn't fast enough, unfortunately. The heavy fridge fell directly on him, causing Lincoln to let out a blood-curdling scream of agony and pain. But his screams were soon silenced after a sickening crunch was heard from beneath the top of the fridge. Then everything was silent. Luan's laughter stopped, and her joy and amusement quickly turned to fear, horror, and dread as he watched the whole scene unfold before her eyes on the camera feed from her iPad. She couldn't believe what had happened, nor did she ever suspect something like this would happen. "Oh no, Lincoln!" Luan gasped in horror. She quickly threw the iPad down onto an old beanbag near by and rushed down the ladder and out of the attic as quick as a roadrunner. Once Luan made it down the stairs and into the kitchen, she found the fridge laying on top of Lincoln, but that wasn't the worst thing she saw. From under the fridge, Luan saw a small puddle of blood forming beneath the top of it. At this point, Luan knew she was in deep trouble, but that was the least of her worries. She tried with all her might to lift the fridge off of Lincoln, but it was far too heavy, yet her fear and desperation caused a massive adrenaline rush to flow through her. With one final effort, Luan put all of her strength into her arm muscles and pushed the fridge as hard as he could, finally lifting it off of Lincoln and off to the side. However, nothing could have prepared her for what she saw. No! Luan cried out in absolute horror. Lincoln lay unconscious on his side with a massive bloody bruise on his forehead, which drenched his white hair red with blood, a black left eye, and a few broken teeth. His right forearm had gotten it worse, however. It was not only broken, but the bone had pierced through his skin and could be seen protruding out the side of his forearm. This was the source of blood that had pooled beneath Luan's feet. She checked him for a pulse, fearing the worst had happened, but she found a pulse running through his neck. He was alive, to her relief. Lincoln! Luan cried, shaking her brother in a desperate attempt to wake him up. "Wake up, Lincoln! Please wake up, please!" Lincoln didn't even stir, which made Luan begin to panic. She knew without doubt that she'd be grounded for life, but Luan didn't care anymore. She rushed out of the kitchen and headed for outside. Meanwhile, in Lisa's bunker, the rest of the Loud family grew a bit concerned about how long Lincoln was taking. "Lincoln's sure taking a long time in there. I wonder if he's okay," Will wondered. "I'm sure he's fine, kids. Lincoln's dealt with this before, so I'm sure he can handle Luan," Rita assured her. Before anyone could say anything else. A loud, rapid bang erupted from the bunker door, catching everyone's attention. Lori glanced out the door window, thinking it was Lincoln, but she only saw Luan. Luan, I already told you once before. Get away from... Lori was suddenly cut off by Luan. Guys, open up! You gotta help me! She yelled frantically, banging on the door again. No chance, Luan! You think we're gonna fall for that trick? We're not as stupid as you think. Lana scoffed in disbelief. She's right, Luan, Luna added. You're just gonna pull a prank on us if we open this door. Please, Lincoln's hurt. He's hurt real bad. He's losing blood, Luan practically screamed. That got everyone's attention big time. At first, some of the girls thought this was a scare tactic to get them all to come out, but they immediately knew that something was terribly wrong when they noticed the tears in Luan's eyes. Girls, I don't think she's lying, Rita said with a fearful tone. We better get up there now. Len Sr. rushed up towards the bunker door and unlocked it. Once he opened it, he led the rest of the family out of a bunker where Luan stood nearby in tears. When Len Sr. and the others noticed how frightened Luan looked, they all knew at once that something bad happened. Luan, where's Lincoln? And what happened to him? Rita demanded. He's in the kitchen. The fridge fell on him, Luan stammered, wiping tears from her eyes. Not even saying another word, the whole family rushed into the house faster than ever before when Len Sr. and Rita made their way into the kitchen, completely unprepared for what they saw. Oh my God! Rita screamed in horror and ran to Lincoln's side, sending Lily down as he knelt before him. Lincoln hurt, Lily whined, crawling up to Lincoln and tapping his head. She may have been 4 years old, but she understood that her brother was in trouble just by looking at the state he was in. Lincoln, my God, his arm, Len Sr. cried out in absolute shock, rushing up to his mangled son. As soon as the others made it inside the kitchen, they all gasped in shock at the sight of their brother in his mangled state. Even Lucy looked deeply disturbed. Lori, call an ambulance, now! Rita yelled in a panicked voice. Lori called for help on her cell phone, while Lenny glared over at Luan angrily and shouted, Luan, what the heck have you done to him? Luan had no words. Hey, why is the fridge on its side? Luna pointed to the fridge, which was now laying on its side, where Luan had moved it. Len Sr. looked over at the top of the fridge, then over at Luan with rage in his eyes. Luan, what in Colonel's name did you do? Why is the refrigerator knocked over? He yelled. I didn't, Luan began, but was cut off by Lori. Mom, I just called the hospital and they're sending help. They said that help will arrive in a few minutes, Lori informed Rita. Mom, Lincoln's not dead, is he? Lucy questioned, not in her usual gloomy tone, but in a frightened manner. No, I felt a pulse, but if help doesn't arrive soon... Rita stopped herself from saying what she was about to say, but she could tell that Lucy understood. We'd better find something to wrap his broken arm up. If Lincoln keeps losing blood at this pace, we might lose him, Lisa informed her siblings in the most serious tone she's ever spoken. I'll get one of the old clean towels from the basement, Lana said, rushing out of a room at breakneck speed for the basement. As Lana left the room, Rita tried desperately to wake Lincoln up, but to no avail. Len Sr. aggressively demanded Luan to tell him just what had happened. And Luan, not caring if she got in trouble, spilled the beans. She described the prank in the kitchen and how it was supposed to work. Then Luan explained how when Lincoln tripped over the now broken tripwire, he slid across the floor and slammed into the fridge, which caused it to fall on him. And that's what happened, Luan concluded. But you have to believe me when I say that I had no idea that the fridge would fall on Lincoln. That was never my intention. Luan, whether or not you plan to drop the fridge on Lincoln matters not, Len Sr. said in a surprisingly calm tone, but still with implications of anger. The fact of the matter is that you did something very reckless without using your head, and because of that, look what's become of Lincoln. That's right, Luan, Lori snapped, glaring at Luan. Did you even consider the fact that your prank might have gone wrong? Did you even think to check the fridge for any signs that just what happened could happen? You're really done it this time, Luan. This time you've gone too far, Lenny declared. I told you that your pranks would be the death of us one day. Lisa hissed at Luan, actually showing her eyes for the first time, and they looked very angry. Luan jumped back, startled. Lucy had never been this hostile before, but it was understandable given the current situation. Before anyone else could lecture or berate Luan again, we all heard the sound of a fire engine horn blasting the distance, along with the wailing of a Q siren and electronic siren accompanying it. That must be the paramedics. I'll go check, Lori said, rushing out of the kitchen and outside the home. At first, Lori thought that it was a fire engine that she and others heard, but once she reached the sidewalk, she saw what it actually was. Approaching the house was a large, modified red and white Mack truck ambulance with lights flashing and Q siren wailing. Its electronic PA 4000 brand siren was also running, but set off as the ambulance slowed down next to the red-painted curb next to the loud house. Yet the Q siren slowly wound down even after it came to a complete stop. Lori then noticed the words, "Critical Emergency Response Unit," written on the side of the ambulance, making her feel more tense than ever. These type of modified ambulances were only for emergencies in Royal Woods, for victims suffering serious life-threatening injuries, and it was already clear to Lori that Lincoln was in very bad shape. She never thought that Land Springs would eventually lead up to these kinds of events. She and the rest of the family never thought it could happen. But how wrong they all were. One of Luan's pranks finally went awry, and now a member of her own family was suffering because of it. Mom and Dad, no, we should have stopped Luan when we had the chance, Lori thought as the paramedics inside the ambulance opened the rear doors. But instead, we all hide in a bunker like cowards every April Fool's Day, just hoping Luan will go easy on us. And now look what's happened as a result of our cowardice. Two EMT officers inside the back of the ambulance wheeled a large stretcher out onto the sidewalk with various medical equipment on it. Then two others stepped out of the driver and passenger side of the ambulance and walked up to Lori. The EMT driver's name tag read Nelson Rivers. "Are you the one who called us about someone named Lincoln Loud needing immediate help?" the EMT driver asked. "Yes, I'm his sister, Lori Loud." Lori nodded. "My parents and sisters are with Lincoln in the kitchen." "Can you lead us to him?" Nelson asked. "Yes, right away. You'd best hurry, 'cause he's hurt real bad," Lori said, leading the paramedics into the house. Once inside, Lori led the EMTs into the kitchen, where they found Lynn Sr. trying to revive Lincoln and Rita gently wrapping an old towel around his broken forearm. Lincoln's sister stood nearby. "Mom, they're here," Lori announced, stepping aside to allow the EMTs in the kitchen. Rita looked up and said, "Oh, thank goodness. Move aside, ma'am. We need to check him out," Nelson instructed. Once she and Lynn Sr. were out of the way, the EMT officers lowered the stretcher bed and wheeled it next to Lincoln. Nelson instructed the other three EMTs to slowly lift Lincoln onto the stretcher. As they did, the blood-soaked towel accidentally fell off Lincoln's broken forearm, exposing the bone. "Oh my goodness, what the heck happened to this kid?" one of the paramedics exclaimed. "Poor kid looks like a train hit him," the other one exclaimed as Lincoln was laid out gently on the stretcher. The three EMTs unloaded their equipment, which consisted of a heart monitor, respiratory mask and respirator, bandages, and a split to hold Lincoln's broken forearm in place. As they hooked up Lincoln to the heart monitor and respirator, Nelson looked over at Rita and Lynn Sr. and asked, "Are you two this boy's parents?" "Yes, I'm Rita Loud, and Lynn Sr. here is his father," Rita replied, still sounding very sick up. "How long has he been unconscious?" Nelson asked. "Since before you got here. He fell unconscious when the fridge fell on him," Lynn Sr. replied. "And it's possible that Lincoln suffered a bad concussion. In any case, we need to get him to the ER right away," Nelson replied, rushing over to assist his fellow EMTs. Lincoln was now fully hooked up to the heart monitor. His broken forearm had been bandaged, strapped and held in place to the metal splint, and the respirator mask had been placed over his nose and mouth. Just then, the alarm on the heart monitor went off, alerting everyone in the kitchen. "Oh no," Nelson said as he glanced at the heart monitor and at the EMTs. "Get him in the ambulance now, and increase the oxygen while you're at it." "What's going on? What's happening?" Rita panicked as the EMTs began wheeling Lincoln out of the kitchen and as quickly as they could. "His oxygen levels are dropping," Nelson informed. "Probably from the blood loss and other possible internal injuries we don't know about yet. We need to move now, or we could lose him." At the mention of Lincoln possibly dying, his sisters began to tense up with fear and dread, and Luan began crying softly again. Rita and Lynn Sr. followed Nelson and the other EMTs out the door with Lincoln's sisters in tow and headed towards the large ambulance. "Is there any possibility of us going with him? I want to be by my son's side," Rita asked. "You and your husband should vote, but the rest of your family will have to remain here or find another way to follow along," Nelson informed. "All right." Rita turned to Lori. "Lori, me and your dad are running with Lincoln. Take Lily and the rest of your sisters and follow us to the hospital in the van." Lori nodded and took Rita from Lily, but ordered her sisters to file inside the family van, which they did in a heartbeat. Luan sat farthest away in the back, still crying and not saying a word. Once Lincoln was safely inside the ambulance, Rita and Len Sr. climbed inside and pulled the door shut. "Hang on back there, you two," Nelson advised. "We'll be traveling at very high speeds on our way." He then started the engine, switched on the emergency lights, and headed off, switching on the PA 4000 siren once they were on the road. The EMT officer in the passenger seat began blasting the Q siren and air horns as the ambulance hit traffic ahead. Outside, Len Sr. saw Lori and the others following close behind the ambulance in Vanzilla. The two EMTs worked frantically to keep Lincoln stable as they increased the level of oxygen in the respirator and examined his head and chest. They had to remove Lincoln's shirt to do this, and when they did, large purple blotches could be seen near the right side of his body. "Oh, this is bad," the EMT officer on the left cursed, and looked over at the small window leading into the passenger compartment. "Nelson, you better step on it. Inform the hospital that we got a code 40. This kid's in far more danger than we thought." "On it." Nelson picked up the radio microphone and called the hospital to inform him of the situation. "What's wrong with him? Is he dying?" Reed began to panic. "He's going to if we don't act now," the EMT said, pulling himself open with various surgical tools. "He's got a puncture in his right lung, possibly from a few broken ribs. That's the reason Lincoln's losing oxygen. He's basically been slowly choking on his own blood the whole time." "Oh no, Lincoln!" Rita began crying. "What are we going to do?" Len Sr. panicked. "We'll have to surgically drain the blood in his lung with a trocar before it collapses completely. If we wait any longer, he'll die. It's a miracle he made it this long on a punctured lung, and it hasn't collapsed yet," the EMT officer replied, slipping medical gloves on his hands and fetching his large trocar from himself. The other EMT handed him a blood bag with an IV pipe attached to it, then hooked it up to the trocar, where he pushed into right side of Lincoln's chest. Once the trocar was in place, the blood in Lincoln's left lung began draining into the blood bag, stabilizing his respiratory system. The alarm on the heart monitor stopped, but Lincoln's heart rate was still very low. "Looks like he's stabilized for now, but he's still in very bad shape," the EMT reported. "Lincoln's not going to die, is he?" Lincoln Sr. asked worriedly. "I honestly don't know," the EMT replied, glancing down at Lincoln. "His injuries are very serious, so we can only hope that he pulls through until we reach the hospital." "Lincoln," Rita said pitifully. Lori and her sisters were far more tense and worried than ever as they followed close behind the ambulance carrying Lincoln and her parents. Lori didn't have to worry much about other cars since the ambulance easily cleared the traffic with its electric siren, Q siren, and fire engine air horns. This easily allowed Lori to match their speed with the ambulance, which was currently going at a full 90 miles per hour, a speed that Lori had never exceeded until now. "Lori, do you think Lincoln will..." Lenny began, trembling as he stared ahead at the ambulance, wondering just what was happening inside. The rear door windows were tinted, so it was hard for Lenny to make out what was going on inside the ambulance. "Don't say it, Lenny," Lori snapped, wiping a tear from her eye. "He's not going to die on us. Lincoln's stronger than you think. I know he'll pull through." "This is all Luan's fault. If it wasn't for her and her stupid pranks, this wouldn't be happening," Willis sobbed. "Yeah, we all knew something like this would happen one day, and now look what she's done," Lenny added. "Her pranks have brought only misfortune upon us all," Lucy said coldly. Luan was probably the one crying harder than anyone else in the van. She knew for an absolute fact that what her sisters were saying was true. There was no denying it. Luan never thought this could happen, nor did she ever suspect that one of her pranks could go wrong like this. She was the queen of pranks, and she never botched a prank before. So how could this one have gone so awry? It made precious little difference as to why or how it went wrong, but the fact was that it did, and this was the result of Luan's horrible blunder. Lincoln was now inside an ambulance and on his way to the hospital in critical condition because of what she had done. Luan began to reflect on all the April Fool's pranks he pulled in the past and finally realized just how foolish and reckless that she had been all those times. Luan had never thought nor considered the possibility that her pranks could have badly injured or even killed one of her parents or siblings during those times, especially the ones at the hotel. She now started to wonder why she ever pulled those pranks in the first place. Luan never intended to hurt anyone. She only wanted to spread her joy of the April Fool's tradition and get a laugh out of her pranking her family, as she always did every year. Yet she never took into consideration as to how it made everyone else feel. And Luan never thought that any of her pranks could go wrong, since he had always tested them first, yet he had never even thought to inspect the fridge before setting up the prank that would eventually lead to this horrible event. Luan never even thought the fridge would actually fall over when Lincoln hit it, since it was so big and heavy. In hindsight, if the leg had not been so loose, the fridge may have stayed in place instead of falling over onto Lincoln like it did. How could I have been so blind? How did I miss such a small detail like that? I'm so sorry, Lincoln. Luan thought, her expression filled with remorse. Luan didn't know what Lincoln's actual condition was at the moment, since he was inside the ambulance, but she could only think of horrible things possibly going on there. She imagined everything from Lincoln choking to death on his own blood to suffering full cardiac arrest, possibly ending up brain dead or, worse of all, dead. Luan didn't know how her family would ever forgive her for this, but she could only hope and pray that Lincoln wasn't going to die from his injuries caused by her recklessness. Lincoln, please don't die on us because of me. I'm so sorry. Please, God, don't take my brother from me. Luan prayed silently as he sobbed softly in the very back of the van.